It was supposed to be just another regular Monday. A short interview. A few questions. A polite goodbye. That's all it was meant to be. But what happened after the interview is something I never saw coming. Something that slowly crept into my life and started tearing apart the very foundation of my marriage. I still remember her eyes, calm, confident, and maybe a little too curious. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. She was just another candidate. Smart. Well-spoken. A little too perfect for the role, maybe. But that's all. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. I had no reason to suspect that this simple job interview would take such a personal turn. My wife, Anya, had always trusted me. We were married for 6 years, solid years. Sure, like any couple, we had our moments. Fights over little things, occasional distance when work got hectic. But we always found our way back to each other. At least, we used to. Before this woman, before Chloe, walked into my office and decided not to walk out when she should have. The strangest part? I didn't even hire her that day. The position had already been filled. But she stayed. She said she wanted advice. Guidance. Said she admired how I carried myself. I laughed it off. Flattered, of course. Who wouldn't be? But nothing more. That's what I told myself. I didn't know then that this brief, unexpected conversation would become the start of something dangerous. Something that would put everything I'd built with Anya at risk. At first, it was innocent. A few emails. A coffee meeting under the excuse of career mentorship. I didn't even tell Anya about it. Not because I had anything to hide, but because it didn't feel important. But that's the thing about secrets, they don't always start big. Sometimes, they begin with the smallest choices. The ones that seem harmless. The ones we think we can control. Anya started noticing changes. The late nights. The sudden silences. The way I'd grab my phone the moment it buzzed. I thought I was being careful, but I wasn't. I thought I was still in control, but slowly, something was shifting. Not just in my marriage, but in me. And Chloe, she wasn't backing off. She always knew exactly what to say. When to show up. When to pull back. It was subtle, too subtle. And by the time I realized how deep I was in, things were already starting to fall apart. I should have ended it early. I should have told Anya everything the moment I sensed something was off. But I didn't. I kept walking that thin line between honesty and betrayal, and now, my marriage is hanging by a thread. But the real twist? It wasn't Chloe's first time doing this. And I wasn't her only target. I found out about her past by accident. One of my coworkers casually mentioned that Chloe had applied for a similar position at another firm in the city just a few months earlier. It wasn't the job that stood out, it was what followed. Apparently, she had gotten close to someone high up in that office too. Whispers. Office rumors. A senior manager whose marriage suddenly collapsed. I didn't want to believe it had anything to do with her, but the pattern was too similar. Same charm. Same timing. Same way she stayed behind after her interview there too. Still, I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was all coincidence. Maybe people were just looking for someone to blame. But then she started showing up more. Not just at the office. Once, I ran into her at the cafe right by my house, the one Anya and I used to go to every Sunday. She claimed it was just a coincidence, but my gut said otherwise. She was polite, acted surprised, but her smile lingered a little too long. And the way she looked at me, it was like she already knew she had a hold on me. I started becoming someone I didn't recognize. I'd zone out during dinner. I'd check my messages late at night when Anya was asleep, even though I knew I was crossing lines I never imagined crossing. I kept telling myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, just talking, just helping, just being kind. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. What really scared me wasn't Chloe's presence. It was how easily I was letting her in. How fast she was weaving herself into my world. And how little effort it took for me to start risking everything I once swore I'd protect. The turning point came one evening when Anya asked me a question I wasn't prepared for. She looked me straight in the eye, her voice calm but shaking underneath. "Is there someone else?" My heart sank. I paused too long. That silence said more than any answer ever could. I told her no, of course. Told her she was overthinking. But even I could hear how weak that lie sounded. She didn't push further that night, but from that moment, the distance between us felt wider. Like something invisible had settled between us, thick and cold. At work, Chloe acted like nothing had changed. Still smiling. Still dropping by my office with quick questions. Still sending messages late at night. And I still responded. I told myself I needed to keep it professional, but somehow our conversations always drifted into personal spaces, how she felt misunderstood, how people used her, how she admired my loyalty. It was clever. Almost manipulative. But part of me felt needed in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Meanwhile, Anya started withdrawing. She wasn't angry, just quieter. She spent more time in the guest room. More time out with her sister. She never mentioned Chloe's name, but I could tell she felt her presence. Like she knew something was happening but didn't have proof, just instincts. The worst part was knowing I was the one putting her through it. A husband she no longer recognized. Even my best friend, Jamal, started noticing. He pulled me aside one day and said, "Whatever you're doing, man, stop before you lose her." I laughed it off, but deep down, I knew he was right. I just didn't know how. Because somehow, Chloe had become a problem I didn't know how to walk away from, and maybe, a problem I wasn't sure I even wanted to. Things finally came to a head the night of the office networking dinner. Anya had agreed to come with me, even though I could tell she didn't want to. Her smile was forced, her eyes scanning the room like she was searching for something, or someone. And then, right on cue, Chloe arrived. She wore a simple dress, nothing flashy, but the way she moved, the way she greeted me with just a bit too much warmth in front of everyone, it was clear. Her message wasn't just for me. It was for Anya too. Anya didn't say much during dinner. She sat there, nodding, pretending. But her hands slowly slipped away from mine under the table. I felt it. That slow, heartbreaking retreat. When Chloe came over to say hello, Anya looked up at her with a calm I hadn't seen before. She smiled, tight, polite, but sharp enough to cut glass. And then she asked Chloe, right in front of me, "How long have you been working so closely with my husband?" The silence was deafening. I tried to laugh it off, tried to change the subject, but both women were locked in. Chloe paused, just for a second, and said, "Not long. But we connect really well. He's helped me a lot." That word, connect, hit like a hammer. It was subtle, but it was enough. Anya excused herself a minute later and never came back to the table. I found her waiting in the car, hands shaking, eyes red, but still refusing to cry. The worst part? I didn't know what to say. Because anything I said would confirm the fear she was already carrying in her heart. And deep down, I was starting to wonder if this was ever really about Chloe, or about the parts of myself I had quietly lost along the way. That night, after the dinner, I sat alone in the living room while Anya locked herself in the bedroom. The silence in the house felt heavier than ever. I knew I had messed up, but I still believed, deep down, that things could be fixed. That I hadn't gone too far. But the next morning, everything changed. Anya wasn't home when I woke up. No note. No message. Nothing. Her things were still in place, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Panic settled in slowly. I called her sister. Her best friend. Nobody knew where she was. And then, while I sat frozen in the kitchen trying to figure out what to do next, my email pinged. It was from Chloe. The subject line simply read, "Thought you should know." There was a file attached. I hesitated. For a full minute, I just stared at it. When I finally opened it, my heart dropped. Screenshots. Dozens of them. Private conversations I didn't even remember having. Flirtatious jokes. Offhand remarks. Late-night messages. All taken out of context, but enough to look awful. Enough to break a marriage. At the end of the email, Chloe had written, "I didn't want to do this, but your wife clearly misunderstood everything. I thought showing her the truth might help." I couldn't believe it. She had sent this to Anya. Everything made sense now, the cold silence, the retreat, the vanished morning. Chloe wasn't just inserting herself into my life anymore, she was actively ripping it apart. But here's the thing, that wasn't the only shock. Later that day, Jamal came by, looking more serious than I'd ever seen him. He sat me down and said something I never expected, "I should have told you earlier. You're not the first guy Chloe's done this to. She's been doing this in different cities, same pattern, same moves. And worse, someone she messed with last year tried to report her. He lost everything. Now it wasn't just about my marriage being at risk. It felt like I was part of something much bigger. A pattern. A setup. Maybe even a trap. And suddenly, the question wasn't just whether I'd lose Anya, but how far Chloe was willing to go to make sure I did. I didn't waste another second. I drove straight to Chloe's apartment. I didn't even know what I was going to say. Anger, regret, confusion were all fighting for space in my head. When she opened the door, her face showed no surprise. In fact, she almost looked calm. Like she'd been expecting me. I asked her one simple question, "Why are you doing this?" She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me with this strange mix of pity and satisfaction. "You made it easy," she said softly. "You were already drifting from her. I just gave you a little push." I stood there, stunned. And then she added, "She's better off without someone who doesn't even know what he wants." That hit hard. But it also told me something important, she wasn't in love. This wasn't about me. It was about control. About power. About ruining things just because she could. I walked away without another word. When I got home, Anya was waiting in the living room. She had finally returned, but not with tears or shouting. Just silence. Her eyes met mine, and I could see the hurt, the disappointment. But more than that, I saw strength. She handed me her phone. It was open to an email she'd just received, from someone anonymous. It was a message from another man Chloe had targeted. He'd somehow found Anya's contact. He'd heard what happened through mutual industry connections and decided to speak up. He shared proof, similar screenshots, messages, even a photo of Chloe outside his apartment late at night. His story mirrored mine. That was the moment Anya realized the truth. She didn't forgive me right away. But she stayed. We talked for hours that night. I admitted everything, every message, every wrong turn, every moment I should have chosen her but didn't. And she listened. Really listened. The trust was shattered, but not completely gone. The next day, we both agreed to report Chloe to HR and legal. It wasn't about revenge, it was about stopping the cycle. But just when we thought it was over, a final twist came. Jamal pulled me aside again, quietly this time. "You might want to check your bank account," he said. "Someone's been using your name to open things. I think Chloe's just getting started." The moment Jamal told me about the bank account, my stomach dropped again. I thought the worst was behind us, but Chloe had one more move. We quickly checked with the bank, and sure enough, someone had tried to open a credit line using my name and work details. Thankfully, it hadn't gone through completely, but it was close. That was the final confirmation we needed. This wasn't just emotional manipulation. It was calculated, intentional, and dangerous. Anya and I filed a formal report. HR took things seriously once the other man came forward, and together, we submitted every message, every screenshot, every bit of evidence we had. It turned out Chloe had used different aliases before, hopping from company to company, leaving a trail of ruined reputations and broken relationships. She knew exactly how far to go without leaving an obvious mark, but this time, she slipped. She underestimated how far we were willing to go to protect what we still had. Anya and I didn't magically fix everything overnight. The damage was real. The hurt took time. But we started again, this time with honesty at the center. I learned that emotional cheating doesn't start with a kiss, it starts with small compromises, with looking outside for something you stopped fighting for inside. I nearly lost my marriage not because of one woman, but because I didn't realize how disconnected I had become. In the end, Chloe was let go from the company. Her actions were documented. We didn't follow up on what happened to her after that, we just wanted peace. And slowly, that's what we found. Through therapy, through long talks, and through learning how to truly be present with each other again. This story isn't just about infidelity, it's about self-awareness, vulnerability, and the danger of silence in a relationship. It's about how trust can break in quiet ways, and how healing only begins when you're willing to confront your own faults. If someone stays after the interview, don't ignore the signs. Respect the boundaries that protect what matters most. Because once trust is broken, it's not just your marriage that's at risk, it's the version of yourself you promised to be. And sometimes, rebuilding that is the hardest part of all. 48.